Hey, Ken here again. I've been thinking a lot about how people perceive the best way of chasing success. Over the past 7 years, I've had the privilege to coach some of the most passionate, driven, and competitive people that I've ever met. And I think success and competition exist differently in certain arenas. I've coached people who've had their own business or were in the corporate world, where success really isn't a zero-sum game. And I've also coached people in professional competitive gaming, in professional esports teams, where at least tournaments typically are a zero-sum game. Somebody wins and the others lose. And one thing I've observed is that regardless of where you are in your career, your level of drive or ambition, or the world where your goals exist, it's very common for people to get into the mindset of not wanting to make any mistakes. I get it. People don't want to fail. And I think it's a very natural thing, right? Whenever you have a project, when you have a performance, it's so natural to think about everything that could possibly go wrong and try to protect against it. And to spend a ton of mental energy preparing for those possibilities, because we don't want to be embarrassed or to make a mistake in front of others or to be seen as imperfect. And while I think it's important to know how to deliver good performances and to chase excellence and to try to grow and improve and try to chase greatness and being excellent at something, there is a serious difference between being excellent at something and being so afraid to make mistakes that you don't take any risks. And I think you'll see this in people who are trying to start their own businesses. I think you'll see this in people who are trying to grow their businesses. I think you'll see this in people who are trying to advance their careers. And I think you'll see this in people who are competitors, maybe even at the highest level. When I was coaching esports teams, there were times where players would be so afraid to be the one that makes the mistake, so afraid to be the one that takes the risk and causes them to lose the round and potentially the tournament, so afraid to make the wrong call or the wrong judgment call in a really heated moment, that decision-making and risk-taking would completely freeze throughout the team. And the problem with spending all of your attention focused on minimizing mistakes is sometimes you leave no effort and attention to taking the actions to create value and make the decisions that actually matter, that win a game, that get the business from a client, that push the boundary of what you're trying to accomplish. When you're psychologically afraid to be embarrassed or to be seen or to look silly because you're so constantly worried about what other people think and how other people can interpret your work or your value or your worth because of how you made an imperfect decision, an imperfect website, an imperfect product, or played an imperfect game, it's mentally super easy to get stuck and frozen in a situation where you're not doing anything and not taking any action. And I've seen many work environments, many team environments, where the culture becomes a cycle of minimizing mistakes and criticism about things that don't matter. And because of either poor vision or leadership or focus or clarity on what are the most important priorities, people get stuck in a loop of just trying to look perfect. They show up metaphorically to work in a suit with no wrinkles. Every email is perfectly capitalized. Punctuation is perfect. Grammar is perfect. Everybody's on time and checking off things in their to-do list, in their checklists. And yet, at the same time, no strides are being made. No risks are being taken. People aren't asking the difficult question of, hey, it's great that we're spending all of this time being perfect and pristine and minimizing mistakes, but are we still doing something that builds value and raises the bar and challenges us to grow and really makes an impact? Because sometimes minimizing mistakes makes you feel good and safe about yourself, but absolutely does nothing for the people you are trying to serve and does nothing to grow your future self. And I want to be clear that in many situations, there are situations where you absolutely don't want to make any mistakes, that you do want to control for a minimum level of quality in the things that you do. For example, if I'm getting a surgery, if I'm going to a doctor, if I'm part of a team that is supposed to build a bridge for people to drive across and use every day, I want to make sure that there aren't mistakes. That makes sense. I get that. But in all of those situations that I just described, minimizing mistakes and making sure you have a good foundation for your decisions all track back to adding value to the main purpose and the main goal. And the difficulty about chasing goals that you are passionate about, that you are driven about, that you say you really desperately want to achieve, doesn't matter your career, business, or competition, or your own personal goals. But sometimes the things that we over-worry about and nitpick about don't actually track back to the things that matter most, the things that actually create value and impact for ourselves and for the people around us. And it is then that that disconnect has consequences, because you're wasting your time and your effort and your attention, and you're not actually getting closer to the things that you are passionate about creating and accomplishing. You don't need the perfect shoes and the perfect workout and pre-workout to go to the gym. You might commit to a schedule or a new habit of going to the gym 5 days a week, or making videos, or writing an essay every day, and you might find that you might fall off the wagon. And you have this idea that your week is supposed to be perfect, and the moment that there's a mistake, well, suddenly everything is blown up and it's not perfect. And it's important for you to let go of this idea of perfection, of a performance without mistakes, so that you can get back on the wagon quickly, let go of the mistake that you no longer control, refocus on the things that actually matter, and ask yourself the tough question of, does this actually move the needle of where I want to go? And then and only then can you know that you're actually focusing and committing to the things that matter the most. Once again, I'm not trying to say go out and make every possible mistake without any thought or intention, but what I am saying is you have to let go of the idea that you're never going to make mistakes, and that everything needs to be a perfect and pristine process. Every endeavor, every experiment, every goal that is challenging and matters is going to at times invite mistakes. Oftentimes going to invite mistakes. That's part of the learning process, is getting over the pain and realizing nothing was ever supposed to be perfect. But if you can continue on the things that matter, if you can continue innovating, if you can continue taking action, even if sometimes you might feel embarrassed about earlier versions of your performances and the things that you made, and if you embrace the mindset that you don't need to be perfect, to look perfect, and you don't need to act perfect to get to where you want to be, you might actually have a better chance of accomplishing the things that you want, the things that you're passionate about, and in that journey become somebody who is confident in who you are and end up becoming your best self. Thanks for listening to me rant. I love sharing all things that might help you become your best self and live the best life that you can. Subscribe, follow, whatever, if you want to see more. See you soon.